Hello everyone, and welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today I'm going to do a watercolor painting from a photograph. This is a photograph of a bay by Guy from Down Under. So it is Saturday morning after the first week of being back at work as a school teacher. So I am quite exhausted. So just putting that disclaimer in there. Because of course, after a long week, waking up Saturday morning, you're going to wake up like that biological clock is already ticking and having you wake up. So we're going to do some painting. So with this photograph, I'm going to use the large hake brush. I have an 11 by 14, 11 by 15 quarter sheet of Stonehenge Aqua, 140 pound cold press, 100% cotton, and I just saturated it with water with the hake brush. And I have some other colors that I might experiment with. And we're just going to have fun and paint. If you need a copy of the photo, you're more than welcome to follow along. But if you need a copy of the photo, I have it down below on my Patreon page. So I'm going to add maybe some different colors. The first one, I think I might add some cerulean blue and make these skies pop a little bit more. I have some turquoise colors that might make an appearance, and then the buff Titan or Titan buff might come in when we put in the sailboats, the yachts. Okay, we have a really high horizon line here. Here is cerulean blue. This is not the real cerulean. This is just a synthetic. I've never painted with the real cerulean. I think it's out of my price range. We're going to grab some ultramarine, migrate up into this darker sky. And we'll grab some Payne's Gray. Get some of these darker aspects. Now I'm painting pretty dark here and pretty heavily with the pigments, but it will lighten up some. We could even get a little bit of that red aspect that's in there by taking some alizarin crimson and mixing that with that Payne's Gray. So we're putting those heavy storm clouds in. If you want, you can take a paper towel and lift out a little bit of highlights and create a little bit of texture in that sky. And then I'm going to come down below and look at my water. Now, in the far distance, in a previous video right before this, I kind of talked about some aspects of the painting, some things that I need to address. You can see the water on the far side of the dock. So that's what that is right there. You can even catch a little bit, just the tiniest hint of land in that background. And I was debating putting that in, but in this wet and wet stage, it'd be too small, too sensitive to kind of get that in place. So we have our dock that's going to come in here, and then we have our water on this side. So I haven't changed the pigment yet. I'm going to kind of map out that curvature. I may be pushing it a little too far left on the picture plane. I'm concerned about the gap right here and how it will look in regards to perspective, since it's wider here on the beach than it is down here. I'm flattening my paper out. I lift the binder clip, move that into place. Let's grab some raw sienna. So I haven't washed the brush yet. Probably will at some point. This might be a little too strong for our sand. I do have some yellow ochre out that I think we can utilize to help create some variations in the sand. Here's that darker ridge. Here's that wet sand you can see underneath. And we have some aspects that are darker. We'll come back in a moment. So we're going to really explore the wet and wet phase here. A little bit more raw sienna. I'm going to grab some burnt sienna, sorry. This is to put in some of my darker aspects on the foliage. I'm going to come in with green on top or a lemon yellow. It's just helping me map out my shadows. And we cut in here. Got to be careful, since if this was matted, it would block it off right on that side. Then we have this upper area, this cliff that kind of, it must be where he took the photograph. So let's use yellow ochre for that dirt here. And we will push our colors and textures. Okay. So kind of have a lot of it mapped out now. I'm going to mix a green. I'm going to use my Payne's Gray to get this green. So a little bit of lemon yellow. Hopefully you can see me mixing it on the palette. And this darker green is going to be used for that further green that we're seeing. It looks like, yeah, we'll do that right there. So we come around and we get some darker aspects, and we'll come over it with more yellower green, and that yellow will help it push forward in the picture plane. In fact, let's look at that yellow right now. So no washing off still. Here we are getting some of that beautiful yellow, and it's on the greener side, obviously, since the brush hasn't been cleaned, but it's helping us create that sense of depth. Now I am going to do a wash off the brush, so this is quite rare for me. But I want to come in with some more darks into that water. So let's grab some ultramarine blue, mix it with a little bit of burnt sienna. Just kind of pushing that around. Get a little bit darker, mix in a little bit of Payne's Gray in there, and that'll lighten up. It may be beneficial to leave this water very soft and ethereal, while accentuating the solidity of the land. Not quite sure if I'm making up words right there. Okay, grab a little bit of burnt sienna for a little bit of texture, our rocks in this portion, a little bit of variety, and that burnt sienna, being a warm color, helps push it forward. Could use ultramarine into this mix. Ultramarine has not been wanting to mix with my other colors for today. A little bit of those rocky aspects that are showing through. We can start putting in, we're going to put people in when we dry. We're going to put the boats in when we dry. So let's build up our green. All right, lemon yellow. Just a little bit. Okay, mix some blue, ultramarine blue. Which, holy cow, that is not mixing that ultramarine at all. Maybe those blue elements will end up staying. Maybe it's that's ultramarine's way of saying, hey, I want to be prominent in this painting. All right, I think I'm going to pause the camera and we're going to do a quick dry off. Okay, we now have a very soft underpainting. I'm going to go for ultramarine blue and burnt umber. It's kind of a darker mix. I'm going to work my way back to front. With the dock, I'm going to use a variety of textures and techniques. So this is a very dry hake brush at the moment. And somebody had asked on a post, on a YouTube post, they were having trouble with getting things muddy or getting this texture. This is very dry, the brush at this point. It's very damp. It's very dry, sorry. There's, I'll probably have to make a video addressing the hake and the water content on it. So that's something that'll be in the works. Okay. This leads over to this land right here. Which we can put, just use the hake, just breaking in a little bit of that dry brush to create that beach sand texture. Okay. While we have the hake out, I'm going to use this color in larger concentrations in the foreground, and we're creating that foliage. So one of the questions that I was proposed or presented was, how do I do this and not get it muddy? So what you need to pay attention to is this. First of all, the brush is very, very, very dry in comparison to where we were at earlier. Second, if I pass over this same area that I just did, there is some moisture there. So I would start to get that blending and that muddying taking place. So in the beginning, as you're controlling water on the hake brush, it may be beneficial to pause right here to do a dry off and then do your next color to prevent that muddying. Okay, here's some lemon yellow. As you can see, I haven't added any water still. One thing to be aware of, though, is that as you start going straight from the tube with really no water, you're going to get the thicker concentration of the pigment, and you might get an effect that is called bronzing, where the watercolor dries and it takes on a sheen to it, like a leather type sheen, which some people might find aesthetically pleasing, other people might not. So that's up to you. But this is where it's prominent and would start taking place quite a bit. I'm going to grab some sap green. I'm going to have to, at this point, grab a little bit of water. I'm literally taking just the edge, getting a little bit of water there. So it's just that small little bit, just so I can grab some sap green. Sap green I usually save for the end, but since I'm focusing on this foreground right now, it's okay. Some different textures popping up. We can come back to that in a few. Mix it with burnt sienna if you want to kind of mellow it out. You can use that for the more mellow foliage back here. All right, let's take the #1 rigger and we're going to play around with this dock. So I'm going to start creating that dock structure, just laying the brush on its side to create that straight line. There's not too much planned here as much as it's just getting a variety of texture to give the illusion that something's going on back here. And with all those masts from the sailboats, I'm going to start doing a little bit more vertical lines here, but I'm also going to put out the buff Titan and we'll use that. Because we have just so many boats. Grab some yellow ochre and use that to accentuate that water beach border. Dry brushing sideways. To get that texture going. Try not to do a straight line here on that edge, just to keep it nice and loose. We even have a little bit of that color back here. That sharp cut. Coming around. And like that. Okay. So now I've been mentioning the Titan buff Titan. I'm going to use this in a separate palette just because it will start chalkifying everything else. And I decided this against gouache mainly because, I don't know, it has a little bit of a kind of tone to it. You can mix some colors into it. Anyhow, here we go. Put those masks in, vary the sizes. We have a building back here. The buildings that break the horizon line. We even have masts that are back on this side. There's just so much going on there. So I'm not painting every single one. You are more than welcome to go ahead and try that and do that. And there's people that would definitely be able to do that. But that honestly just isn't for me. Now we have actual sailboats that are interspersed. I'm going to apply it a little bit heavier. We might have to switch to gouache. Or if we can get this variety where it dried light and then we have a little bit more stronger buff tighten, that'll give us good variety. Now all these little boats, you don't have to find out the exact location of them. And we just have to get the illusion that there's a whole bunch there and that they're boats. Let's go up for the mast. I need more water on this. There we go. The mast. If you don't like it, dab it right back up. Create little squiggles for the reflections. Probably accentuate some of these with a little bit of a dark aspect on some spots on the boat, which I think will wind up taking place. Accentuate that building. Some mask back here. Let's see. I was going to use the razor blade to scrape some too. I think we'll let this dry and I'll come back and I'll think about that. Okay. Now let's look at the beach and see what we can do. I'm going to grab a little bit of burnt umber, mute it, darken it with ultramarine. You can put little gestural dots for that beach. And as you recede back, you can get them closer and closer together. Okay. Now the people since we're looking down, they're not all level, obviously. So the way we're going to do this is have our larger people up close. We have somebody walking a very large dog, a couple walking a very large dog. I'm just going to put in very simplified shapes that will hopefully read as people. Some of them have some different colored shirts on. Some of them are sitting in the water. And just make them smaller in size. And these dots will represent people. There's a couple sitting out here. I think one of the key things is, oh, and they got shadows too, so let's help them sit in place. Kind of water it down a little bit. If you don't like it, wipe it to fix it. We'll grab some light red oxide. Give them a little bit of colored shirts. You could take that Titan buff and put that in for people with white shirts. Just kind of making those marks. There is a little bit of sandbanks here. Thinking there's a little bit of yellow ochre. Now this is not sitting well in the picture plane, so I'm going to have to figure out how we can get these masses to sit. Let me try raw sienna, see if that was the way to go. Wiped it out a little bit. Let's grab our dark. Let's see if we can just put people on these little banks. Not banks, sand dunes. And we could do a little bit of texture in the water. Buff Titan or titanium or whitewash if you have it, you can use that. Let's go back to these background boats. You can take our dark mix. Accentuate some of the shadow portions, the bottom of the boat where it meets the water. And that seems like it gives enough illusion for that. All right. Now, I'm using the number 4 rigger. And I'll mix a nice dark, ultramarine blue, burnt umber, model in some of the shadows, really start to accentuate this foreground. even dry brush sideways for a little bit more texture on that that cliff side. All right. I think after we dot in some lemon yellow, we can then decide if we want to use the razor blade for texture on that background. A little bit of that dark. Make sure there's no paint on my hand because I don't want to smear that in the sky. We could throw in some birds. As you know, they're always flying around, catching those warm currents, looking for fishes to eat. I'm going to pause for a quick dry off. Now, the reason I did the dry off is that if I'm going to use a razor blade, I don't like using it on the wet paint. It kind of slides a little too much. It acts a little different. If you're going to use a razor blade, be careful, please. This Band-Aid isn't from a razor blade. It's from the knurling on a knob, turning something. Okay, so there's two different types of cuts, or three different, there's a few different types of things you can do with the razor blade. With this one, I'm going to do a vertical line cut where it does a straight line and it doesn't bounce. I'll try to do it over this dark one if we could see it. We may not have enough dark enough background to get these cuts to work. Fortunately, that seems to be the case here. So we'll save the razor blade for another day, I think, since I'm not getting that effect. We don't have it dark enough. But that's totally fine. We use kind of a little dirty buff titanium buff back there. We did use the pure titanium buff. We did use darks. So we did create a lot of texture for the illusion. Accentuate these people a little bit. People sitting on there. Maybe add another person hanging out. And if we wanted to, we could dry brush a little bit for some water texture. But I gotta see what color I would go with. So, just to obviously throw it out there, you are always more than welcome to follow along with one of these tutorials. You're more than welcome to sign your name to it. You're more than welcome to sell anything you do from any one of my tutorials. You have my express permission. I want you guys to be successful. Art supplies are expensive, so you know that always helps having that extra cash. And you know, it just has good positive vibes. If you want to support this channel, liking and subscribing is a great way. I do have some a Patreon account, which I would love for you guys to check out and potentially support me there. I do have some stuff on Etsy, so if there's ever any paintings or anything you like, let me know. I have that link down below as well. And of course, if you ever have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know down below. And if you ever follow along with anything, feel free to shoot me a message or tag me on a social media. There's a little Payne's Gray just to darken some spots. I want to see your results. All right, we did one last dry off. Sign in our name. And I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. And stay safe.